As someone who owns a 3D printer who tries to be environmentally conscious, I've always wondered if anything can be done with the failed prints and supports that build up over time, like this poor guy who didn't quite work out. When I visited a university makerspace, I noticed that they had a big bucket where they were saving PLA scraps, which got the gears turning in my head. What can you do with all that filament besides just throwing it away? I found inspiration from several YouTube videos about melting PLA scraps down into silicone molds. So I contacted that makerspace to ask about their saved filament, and they said that I could have it. I ended up with 4 garbage bags full of it. I also happen to have an old toaster oven that would be perfect for the job of melting plastic. Now, this is a very materials, money, and time-intensive tasks, so it might be right for you if you happen to have a ton of PLA filament. Otherwise, you can always contact a local makerspace, a library that has a 3D printer, and see if they'll save it for you, because it takes a lot more than you would think to melt this down into skulls. You will also need a silicone mold, an N95 mask, scissors, pliers, maybe this hedge trimmer thing that I found in my garage, aluminum foil, and oven mitts. You will also need something to blend up the plastic. I just bought this $20 blender. And then something to cook it in. I use this old toaster oven that's been sitting in my basement forever. Now, you could just fill up your mold with PLA scrap, melt it down, and repeat. But this is going to take several hours, and it goes much faster if you break down your scraps into smaller pieces so you can cram as much as possible into your mold. For smaller stuff, like supports, brims, and these little stringy bits that come out, you can put them in the blender and shred them into a nice plastic slurry. I got a little carried away during this part and made jars of color-sorted slurry, but you can just blend it all together. For bigger stuff, a blender won't do much. That's where the shears come in. Cut the prints into pieces that will fit into your mold. You'll want to set up your oven outdoors so the fumes don't fill up your house. Make sure to wear your N95 respirator. Set your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit and fill your skull with plastic. I like to use the bigger pieces first, then use the slurry to fill in the gaps. Don't be surprised when you fill the skull completely only for it to melt down into a puddle. 3D prints are mostly air after all. That's why the slurry speeds things up so much. Cook your plastic for about 15 to 20 minutes. Then take it out, refill it, and repeat. Towards the end of the process, you'll want to use all slurry to fill in the gaps. As you get to the end of the mold, you'll have to be filling it up more often, and you can also reduce the cook time to 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Once your mold is mostly full, it's really hard to get it all the way up to the lip of the mold. Let it cool down enough to take out. Pop it in the freezer for a few hours to speed up this process. Alright, so after several hours of filling and refilling this, this is what we're left with. So as you can see, it is not very smooth on top. And all these little bits around the edges, they kind of have to be peeled off. So be careful, they're going to be sharp. And I've got a pliers so you can kind of do that to get them off. The silicone is surprisingly hardy, so don't be afraid to clench it on there and peel it off. You don't need to do them all right now. You just need enough area to kind of peel this away. And it's really awkward to peel a silicone mold off of this thing. You think you're going to be tearing it, but you really have to force it out of there. Taking the skull out of the mold would be the most difficult and ungraceful part of this process. Luckily, you won't have to do it on camera like I did. And there we go. This is meant to be Minnesota Gophers, maroon and gold. It ended up looking like ketchup and mustard, but you know, I think it's still pretty cool. In the end, I made 5 skulls, using a few different strategies. For my first skull, I used an assortment of random scraps, breaking them into small pieces but not blending them. I like how you get big blotches of color with this method. For the second one, I switched it up and used all plastic slurry without sorting it by color. It has a cool speckled pattern. The third one was my ketchup and mustard one, where I filled it with a mixture of chunks and slurry. The fourth one was meant to be the same but with black and green. Unfortunately, the black overtook most of the skull, so I realized that what you put in first really affects the outermost layer of the skull. For the fifth one, I took what I learned from the previous skull and tried to get an equal assortment of colors on the bottommost layer, which I think worked out pretty well. For for a few final tips. Make sure you wear your mask whenever you're around melting plastic, or you will make yourself sick. It helps to wear eye protection when cutting up big pieces, as they can go flying. And lastly, do not use any of these tools for food after using them for this project. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.